One of the biggest mistakes people make when discussing masculinity is treating it as if it appeared yesterday, but it didn't. Men were trying to survive as men long before anyone wrote books about what masculinity should be. That historical reality matters because many modern discussions completely ignore it. For most of human history, masculinity was not an identity, it was a function. Nobody sat around debating masculinity on social media. The question was simpler. Can you contribute? Can you work? Can you protect? Can you endure hardship? Can people depend on you? That was the test. Not because ancient people were wiser, but because survival left little room for abstraction. A farmer in ancient times did not wake up asking, "Who am I?" He woke up asking, "Will the harvest survive?" A soldier did not ask, "How am I perceived?" He asked, "Will I survive this battle?" This doesn't mean ancient men were happier. They weren't. Life expectancy was lower. Violence was higher. Disease was everywhere. Child mortality everywhere. Child poverty was normal. Most historical men lived lives that modern people would find extremely difficult. The point is not to romanticize history. The point is to understand it. Because psychology develops inside environments. And for thousands of years, male psychology developed inside environments where survival mattered more than self-expression. Then something extraordinary happened. Modernity arrived, and for the first time in history, large numbers of men could survive without constantly confronting nature directly. This changed everything, but human psychology did not update overnight. A man living in 2026 carries a brain shaped by thousands of years of older realities. The world changed rapidly, but human nature changed slowly. This creates friction. A lot of friction. For most of history, man's usefulness was obvious. The feedback was immediate. If you contributed, people noticed. If you didn't, people noticed. So the relationship between effort and necessity was very, very visible at the time. Today, that visibility is often gone. A man spends 8 hours moving digital information between screens. He receives money. The system works, but the connection between effort and survival becomes abstract. Many modern men understand what they do, but fewer understand why it feels psychologically different from what men experienced historically. Modern culture often sends contradictory messages. Be ambitious, but don't be obsessed with success. Be strong, but don't appear threatening. Be emotionally open, but remain emotionally stable. Be competitive, but not too competitive. Lead, but don't dominate. Provide, but don't define yourself through providing. Pursue status, but pretend status doesn't matter. Many young men are not confused because they are stupid. They are confused because the signals conflict. When signals conflict, confusion is predictable. Not mysterious, but very, very predictable. Much of modern masculinity conversation is happening among people who rarely face the conditions that originally shaped masculinity. Most discussions occur in comfortable environments: climate control, food abundance, relative safety, digital communication. The conversation itself occurs under conditions that would have been unimaginable for most of human history. That doesn't make the conversation invalid, but it often disconnects it from historical, reality. Many things celebrated online have almost no relevance in ordinary life. A man, can win thousands of arguments online and still fail at managing his finances. A man can perfectly explain masculinity and still be unreliable. A man can, memorize every theory and still be unable to carry responsibility. Knowledge about masculinity and competence as a man are not the same thing. Look carefully at the man history depended upon. Not kings, not celebrities, not influencers, but ordinary men. Previous generations inherited models directly from fathers, communities, trades, and local culture, but many modern men inherit competing voices from millions of strangers online. The result is noise. An enormous amount of noise, guys. And there is the truth that rarely gets said. The confusion itself is not the problem. Every generation experiences confusion. The real danger is building an identity entirely around the discussion, because discussion can become a substitute for development, a substitute for competence, a substitute for responsibility, a substitute for reality. The world does not ultimately evaluate a man through theories. Families don't, businesses don't, communities don't, history doesn't. Reality eventually asks simpler questions. Can people depend on him? Can he remain functional under pressure? Can he solve problems? Can he contribute more than he consumes? Can he carry responsibility without collapsing? Those questions are thousands of years old. And despite all the technological changes surrounding us, they remain surprisingly difficult to escape. That is why modern masculinity feels confusing. The world has changed faster than instincts. The language has changed faster than expectation. And beneath all the noise, millions of men are still confronting a challenge as old as civilization itself, figuring out how to become useful in a world that keeps changing faster than the rules can be written.